Hey there. So since this course was made, many new brushes have come out in Photoshop and they are amazing, and I highly recommend you get to know them. So I know that we've gone over different brushes in Photoshop already, and actually it's just after the new year, and I see that I should probably, before I even start this video, just update my version of Photoshop. So perhaps there's a 2019 and maybe there's even more brushes. Before I do that though, I just want to show you, so over the past year or so in the new version of Photoshop, this is from an animation that I'm working on. I just wanted to show you from frame to frame, you can see some of these new brushes that I've started playing around with. So this one makes a little pattern, and you see some are kind of wispy, and others are just a typical line that you can use. So you see I'm using different brushes, just a typical pencil line as I'm drawing over, and regular painting brushes. But then you have different thicknesses, different patterns, splatter brushes. There's some that are like a photocopy machine. You can see in some of these different scenes how I've been, it was really, this particular scene was just an excuse for me to play with different colors as well as different brushes. So you see there's different line widths and sensitivities. Some are very blurry, and then others are more like oil painting, and you can really mix the colors. This is kind of like a cross-hatching one, etc., etc. Splatter brushes. So I'll just kind of drag through so you can see rather quickly. And it was really just me having a lot of fun with these new brushes in Photoshop. And before I update to 2019, I'll just show you whatever version of Photoshop you're in. If you want to get more brushes, so we can go over here. So we go to the brush tool, and then over here you have whatever brushes you're using. And you can see all of the different brushes that I have downloaded that is connected to Photoshop. So if you have an internet connection, you can get gouache brushes, gouache 2, megapack, art markers, letterers, etc. Legacy brushes, those are the ones that are in the older versions of Photoshop. So if you're looking for a tried and true brush and you just want to use something from an older version of Photoshop, you can find all of those in there as well. So where to get the new brushes is you go over here and get more brushes. Yoink. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you're not locked out and you're signed into Photoshop. And these are new, so I'm excited. But these were the ones that I had downloaded before. So you have a Megapack, watercolor, dry media. There's so many. I can't go into all of them. I encourage you, just download. Originally I was somewhat overwhelmed. I only downloaded 1 or 2 packs, but in the end I ended up downloading all of them. And I use all of them, especially in my animation. So you've got manga brushes, cross-hatchers, rake brushes, impressionist letterers, halftones, copier, which kind of gives you this cool medieval gothic effect, which is kind of neat, markers, concept, a whole bunch of ones. And these are actually new too for me. I didn't see these summer 2018 brushes, so I'm going to download that. Okay, and yeah, it's just as easy as that. So I'm downloading those, and let me get the winter brushes as well. So it's just different inks, paints, and cool brushes called scribblers. Ooh. Okay, let's do that. And that's it. You download, and it's going to take a little while. So meanwhile, let's go back into Photoshop, shall we? Okay, so here I just have a blank screen just so I can play with the brushes a bit more. And so here we have the brush tool, the pencil tool, the mixer brush tool. But with some of these brushes, just to warn you, so if I go in here and, for example, if I go under wet media brushes, for example, so you see there's all these different ones, Paintbox Wet Blender. Now if I do that, watch what happens. Do you see what happened up the top here? It actually turned into something of a smudge tool. And so this is the kind of brush that you would use on a mark that you've already made. Well, I have a blank screen here, so I can't really use that one, but just be careful, because that's the only weird thing about these new brushes. You think you've chosen the brush tool, but it will sometimes switch over to an eraser tool the mixer brush tool or the other one, the blender tool. So for example, look, I did the real oils, and now it's the mixer brush tool. So let me just pick a couple of colors here, purple and blue, and change the size a little bit. I have a huge document, so that's why. Now this is doing purple on top of a white background. If you have multiple layers, you can sample all the layers, but this is a mixer brush, right? If I go back to just a regular brush tool, I can just experiment with all of these. So I'm not going to go through all of the brushes. I think you would get bored pretty quickly just watching me do it. But just very quickly, I'll just grab, a rake brush, for example. I love these rakes, right? And you just grab a color and you get something like that. I have a bit of a delay because I opened up a gigantic file that's like 9,000 pixels by 9,000 pixels. It's because the last thing I was doing was making some illustrations for t-shirts, which needed to be print resolution, so it just kind of by default opened this really gigantic file. So those are the rake brushes. And let's see, what else to tell you? Cross hatching, very cool. So, see? So I encourage you, just go get your new brushes and start playing with them. You may have to give yourself some extra time just to get familiar with all of them, which is kind of why I made that scene in my animation the way I did. I just had so many frames to do, and I figured why not test out all the brushes frame by frame. So I hope you enjoyed these brushes, and don't forget, it's always a good time to update your Photoshop to the latest version if you have an Adobe subscription. So I'm going to do that now. Yeah. All right, so you'll be all ready for the new year. So enjoy, and see you in the next lesson.